Hey everyone, welcome to the CITIUS Mag podcast. I'm your host, Connor Mantz, joined here with our special guest, Chris Chavez.
Connor, you're a natural at this point. Appearance number 10, I believe, on the
Oh wow,
podcast. And
that's actually
I
quite a
think
few.
that's a record. So if anything, that's a great record to hold. I think you surpassed, Scott Fauble had it before you. So keeping it in good company, I think.
He'll probably come and take it back. That's probably something he'd want to keep.
Yeah, right. All right, so we've got this tradition going. We had a ton of questions submitted on Instagram when I said that we were doing our recap podcast, and this is also somewhat therapeutic. I think when I saw you after the race, you're like, "Oh yeah, my wife Kylie. This is how she finds out how the race went because it's
Right.
like she'll just listen to this and get all of the details."
Right, it gives her something to do while she's cross training, and um, when we're together, we don't usually talk about the race at all. Like, I didn't realize that was a thing until she mentioned that after New York. She's like, "Oh yeah, like I didn't know about this." It was like a month after New York. She's like, "I didn't know about this." I was like, "Oh really? Like we hadn't talked about it?" She's like, "No, we don't talk about your races after them. We go and do other stuff." And I was like, "Oh, you're right."
There we go. So if we're catching Kylie in the middle of a warm up or cool down as she listens to this, hopefully
Yeah,
she learns a thing or two from this one. But I saw you ran with her this morning, so you're
yeah,
back at it lightly.
lightly. So 2 miles of her warm up for her workout, and then I went out and timed her, and then um, I don't even know if I timed her. She was just doing the workout DLG gave her, but I was there as the supporting person.
There we go. I saw the video that Clayton had put up of him trying to go for a jog after the race, and it was like the funniest shuffle I think I'd ever seen. And then after a while, like he got his legs back a little bit. But are you in a similar case where it's like this was the most beat your body has been after a race?
I don't know if I'd say that, but it's close to it. Both after the Olympics and then after my first Boston, I was pretty wrecked. And I don't know if that was starting out as fast as we did the first 5K, and then like you know getting pounded and not being ready for that. Like I think I was a lot fitter this to go around, so like the start didn't beat up my body as bad, or if there was something else to it. But that time I was in really bad shape after the race.
So the cool part about how much you and I catch up to discuss these races is that we don't have to spend like an hour on the training and the setup because we literally just did a podcast about that maybe like 10 days ago. And so let's kind of pick things up from the moment, I guess, like you get to Boston and now it's, the race is quickly approaching. How are you feeling? And when I saw you at the press conference, we were talking about just, the weather and the conditions and what you thought other people were going to be doing. So what were your expectations going into the race based off of just like the buzz among the pro field?
Yeah. So originally I was expecting Sisse Lema to take the lead and push, and then I ran into him in the hallway like right when I got there, and first off he had like great English, which is a little was a little surprising because most interviews he has a translator. So that kind of threw me off, and I was like, wait, did I meet the right guy? We were just chatting a little bit, and he said something along the lines of, are you, I don't know what I said, like, man, like, excited to race you, and he's like, oh, I'm injured. He just kind of, like, said that, like, straight out, like, yeah, I'm injured, we'll see. And I was like, oh, okay, well, good luck anyway. Like, I'd heard a rumor that Tola was injured before New York, and he still kicked my butt there, so, like, I don't know if I trust that, but then in the overall press conference, he like was very blunt and said, "I'm not doing the same thing I did last year." And so I was more worried about, Chebet with Chebet's type of moves that he's thrown in other races. Like I was like, okay, like we're probably gonna go out pretty quick, but I don't know. It's likely with Daniel Matayako, and then just a whole huge field of athletes that we were going to go out fast. But it was like Chebet's probably going to be making some really hard move around 25K because the last two times I've raced him, he's done that. So that was kind of one of the things I was thinking. Like that's how I expected the race to play out. And I think I mentioned this earlier to you that I made a Google Sheets of what people went through in their first half and their second half of the previous marathons and what it took to win, and a lot of it was 62:34, 60 or 63. I'll name off a few of these. It was about 63:30, so 63:34 and 63:25 and 63:29 for 2021 to 2023. Those were the second half marathon splits of the winner. And so I was expecting that, no matter how fast we go out, it's going to all be in that second half that we really, crank down and break away.
So that, was, very calculated. I think that 25K move by Chebet is something that once you mentioned it, I think on the show, a lot of people kind of echoed and were looking out for it, especially on the broadcast. And so when we'll get to that point in the race, we'll explain just exactly what happened. So then from there, I did go about asking the East Africans what they thought about you. And in many cases, there was a level of respect. They're like, yeah, no, Connor Mantz is a good runner. And they all said the same thing. No one said who or didn't know who you were. My thinking is maybe Cisse Lemma saw you and didn't realize you were in the pro field, but maybe. And then he just gave you that little bit of information. But it is clear that based off of NYC Half, Houston, you've earned these guys respect. And so very much so, I think they were also looking at you. And when the race day comes along and you do what you do in the first kilometers, I don't think anyone was really taken entirely by surprise. But let's go into just the fact that you and Coach Eyestone came up with this plan, and the first part of it was coast. So what was the plan here with Coach Eyestone, and how was that defined before the race?
Yeah, so we probably should have defined it more because I felt like I coasted. I felt, but apparently not because I ran out so fast. But it was defined as a moment to just get moving. Don't do anything. Don't go out hard. Don't do anything overly over the top. And the you have those hills, so just feel it out. The first 5-6 miles is net downhill considerably, and so it was don't overdo it. And so when we start out that first mile or so, it felt very easy. Looking at my heart rate data afterward, I think I averaged somewhere in the 120s for that first mile with a max heart rate for that first mile of 140. And it was just because you're bombing it downhill, and you start at, your heart rate starts at 60 or 70 at the start of the race. So it was we had, we just talked about coasting, and I think I may have, I was a little aggressive, more than I probably should have been. But it felt very easy, felt very relaxed. I knew that first mile was too quick, but unlike 2 years ago when we ran a little bit faster through 5K, this felt like a more of an even effort through that first 5K instead of being out front. I was able to run the effort I wanted to over the hill. So that first 10K was kind of, my variance in pace was, I felt had more to do with just the effort of the uphills and downhills.
So at no point in those first, you see because you keep track of the 5K splits, you see 14:20, you're not concerned?
A little bit, but not really. Just because I knew we went out faster than that 2 years ago. And in a way, it's comforting when you see other guys other guys that train in the U.S. right there. You have Rory Clayton and Pat Tiernan around you, and Pat's, I don't know, I was kind of going off Pat a little bit for a lot of those miles, and so I wasn't too worried there.
With Pat, I guess, I was trying to figure out what was the strategy up there. Did you tuck in behind him at any point? Because he's a tall dude.
I probably spent at least 6 miles behind Pat. Between him and Cisse Lemma, over the course of the race, I probably spent at least 8 miles between the two of them. like when they were just the two in the lead.
Yeah, smart. How much talking is going on up in the front? Well, at this effort, like I'm guessing it's hard.
Yeah, there was, I don't know, it felt really relaxed those first 4 or 5 miles. Then when Lemma took the lead, it was a little less relaxed. Throughout the first half, I think the only thing let's see, in about the first 800, me, Rory, Pat, and Clayton had a little gap on the field. And I said something like, oh man, this is awesome. Like, I know all these guys. And then, I mean, there was one point around mile like 10 or 11 where Rory's like, hey, wait. He like was right next to me and Rory's like, is that Bia in the lead vehicle? And I like look up and I'm like, I think it is. Pretty sure it was. Trying to think. Then there was like this was one of the more interesting parts of the race. I can't remember where it happened. I feel like it was mile 10 or something like that. Where pace was feeling pretty hard and Mukhtar Idris Edris, I don't know if I've been saying that right, came up right next to Sisse Lemma and they had a conversation for probably between a minute and a half.
And you have no idea what they said.
Yeah, they were speaking Amharic. It's Amharic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were speaking Amharic. I don't know that language, so.
That's your next move, is trying to learn Amharic so that you can just like pick up on these things.
Right. I think it was that there's this might be looking into it too much, but I have a little hypothesis that maybe Lemma was like pacing Mukhtar, and that he was like going off the pace because after that he slowed just a hair, like just a tiny bit for like the rest of the time he led, and so I wonder if he was, if he was just going off of what Mukhtar wanted.
Yeah. No, that could make sense. I'll ask around my Ethiopian friends and people to see like if there's any relationship between those guys or anything like that. Because I mean, it'd be a cool understory behind like the whole thing, but in the end, like not entirely effective because one of them ends up dropping out, the other one finishes fifth. But so 6 to 16 in the race plan is cover.
Yeah.
How many moves at that point did you feel like you covered? Because the pack goes through the halfway point in 61:53, and at that point, there were still 16 guys in contention.
Right. There were a lot less moves there than I kind of expected there to be. I kind of thought that either Sisse Lemma was going to make a move or somebody was going to watch his race last year and make their move. So there was no real moves. There was a point where Rory was in the lead and had a little gap on us. And it's funny, like Pat, I talked to Pat yesterday about it, and he looked at me like, are you going with it? And I like looked at him, and then like I covered it, and then the whole pack went and covered it, and I talked to Rory after, and he's like, I wasn't making a move. He's like, I didn't know I had that big of a gap. He's like, I was just running, and I was out in the lead. But there were really no moves during that period, so it was just kind of, I don't know, it was probably the most relaxed that was I actually felt like the hardest part of the race other than the finish, but I was surprised that nobody was making any hard moves.
The one thing that was interesting as I was watching this race is that sometimes in years past, like people would make moves on water stations or even just taking a certain tangent, and it would look like it'd be a breakaway or like a fake out, and then people would have to respond. And this time around, it just didn't feel like there was much of that at all from 6 to 16.
Right. It was a very calm race. Like, I want this field on a flat course just because of the way everyone is running it. Oh.
You're good.
I want this field on a flat race just because everyone was so respectful at water stations, like for the most part. Coach and I did have a plan that, I would always try and be in the pack. I'd want to be in the front right part of the pack so I could easily get to the water station. So I did that for the most part, but it was, this was the least crazy any water stations I've had or fueling stations. And for a pack as big as that, like, everyone was just very respectful, and it almost seemed like everyone was trying to run fast. Like, it felt like everyone was, out for, one another. or just waiting for somebody to make a move. Like it was interesting, different.
Did you get a good table?
Not particularly. I was eighth table, so I like to be at one of the early tables because if you're like near the end, if you're after like the third table, everyone's either weaving in or weaving out. So, but it was nice because running behind Pat Tiernan, he would be up if he was up front. He was table 7, so he wasn't gonna weave in and out. He was just gonna stay up front and just run right by the table. So I guess there might have been more issues behind me, but where I was at, there was no issues at all.
I mean, again, to the point of just like how clean of a race it was in terms of just like the shuffling and all that stuff. Like, I don't even remember like there was any like big bottle sharing or anything like that, right?
I didn't see any.
Yeah. And then no high fives with you and Clayton this time around?
No, I knew Clayton was there, and I knew he was like behind me, but it was very like I was trying to be a little more focused this go around, just because the last time I ran Boston, I enjoyed the crowd so much, and I think it kind of took my energy away. I think I was like just so excited, and then when I hit the wall really hard that year, I like was gone.
So to hit pause on just like where we are in the race, like, and on the note of you and Clayton in the hotel beforehand, I guess as you guys are getting ready to head to the buses, there's a run-in with Ryan Hall. Can you share that story?
Yeah, so it was actually as we were draining our legs at the right before we warmed up. So it's not even at the hotel. This is at like the
in Hopkinton, right? At the Village?
Yeah, in Hopkinton. This is under the elite athlete tent. We're sitting there draining our legs, and Ryan Hall passes by, and Clayton's like, "So is it a 2:04:50 58 day?" And Ryan's like, "Not with my shoes, but maybe with your shoes it is." And it was just funny. It was like very encouraging. It was like, yeah, like there's no way anyone's running that fast today. Well, maybe like some of the Kenyans or Ethiopians, but that's gonna be a tall ask. But it was kind of funny, like he said that, and it was like, oh, that's encouraging, but Boston's such a tough course.
Yeah, because I guess like coming into the day, only 2 men in history had run under 2:04 on this course, and for a good chunk of this race, you guys were like so many guys were on pace to do something like that. Did you do the math at any point of like, hey, I think we're on this pace, and like, I would worry some athletes, I think, to like to hit a panic button internally and be like, ugh.
So that was one thing I tried to work on. I was reading there's a sports psychology book that I was reading, just kind of reviewing some things from it, just random chapters I would turn to on the flight there, and one of them was like, there's a theory: the more you think, the more you think, the slower you react in sports, and in the chapter it's like, no, that's not true. It's actually the more you worry, because you're always thinking, but it's the more you worry about whatever, the slower you react. And so I was talking it over with Clayton, and I was like, Clayton, you do a really good job at this. Like, you're never worried. If somebody makes a move, you don't match it. You just kind of, slowly catch up. You don't react to anything quickly. And I was like, dude, that's something you do really well. So in my mind, it was, I'm not going to worry about, what if this happens, or what if I blow up, or what if this happens. I'm just going to race and see how I feel, and follow what coach's plan is. I'm not going to be worried about the what ifs or anything. And so that was, I don't know, when we came through, some of the splits, I guess I was a little worried, because it was getting hard. And I was like, I know we're going faster than I would like even through 20K we were fast, but I wasn't doing the math because I just know that first half can be so fast and that second half can be so devastating.
Yeah.
I don't know, there were points, I should have phrased that. There were points past halfway and around halfway where I did the math where I said, if I run 5-minute pace the rest of the way, where do I end up? Like, let's say I blow up. So every mile after 15 was sub 5 for me. So I guess 15 was the only one over 5, and it was like 5:01. So I would do the math. I was like, okay, I'm under. So that means I'm gonna run. What if I run 5-minute pace the rest of the way from here and here and here? the time just got faster and faster. But when I first did that, I think it was, hitting that at right after halfway, and it was like, oh, I'll run 2:07 low, and like that usually, I don't know, that places very well for the most part. So I was like, oh, if we're running this fast, I feel this good. Like, I'm gonna run faster than 5-minute pace. So this is gonna be a good day.
You know, a lot of people are going to be wondering what book this is. So, do you know the title and author?
It's The Fearless Mind by Dr. Craig Manning.
Cool. Those sales are going to skyrocket after this.
Yeah.
All right. So then after that, the race plan called for 16 to 21, another cruise section. And we know, I guess, like how 20 goes in a sec. But from 16 to 20, are you just at this point anticipating like someone is going to do something? And what's the internal monologue at that point?
That's exactly it. I was expecting Evans Chibet to make a hard move or somebody else. And so I actually get to the front around right after mile 15. I know mile 16 is downhill. And the last time I raced Boston, Evans Chibet went to the other side of the road and pounded for like 2 minutes. And he ran like a 4:20 something mile. And I ran a 4:33, and I was 10 seconds back, maybe even more. And so, as I'm running this mile, I'm like, I want to be at the front, so when that move is made, I can react immediately. But the cruise portion was like a cruise missile. Like, at this point, you're gonna move hard, but you're not going all out. It's like a very well paced, hard effort. And I think I did a really good job at that for the most part. Like, I was at the front on almost all the hills. I was never, pounding the hills. I was never, I'm going to crush this hill and drop a lot of people, but I was never letting up. I was kind of in that, almost all of it, I was in that front. I was in the front 3 or 4 guys of the pack, just pushing up the hill, keeping my turnover good. And I was really pleasantly surprised because I was feeling good. Like, the hills didn't feel as hard as they did when I came back and did a training trip in February. And it was like, oh, these hills are just going by. That's the feeling you want with these hills. They're going by well. You feel good going up them. You don't feel like you're struggling to get up them. And I don't know. In my mind, the race doesn't start till 21 miles because that's when you get to the top of the hill. And so going through these hills, not having to make any moves, not feeling like anybody's making any moves yet, was a great feeling.
When John Career decides that the 20th mile was going to be his move, he told me yesterday that his race plan called for be the only one and be alone at the top of Heartbreak Hill, and that from there he could probably try and hammer it home and hopefully get away from everyone. So that kind of alters things a little bit because you're thinking it's going to happen at 21. It happens at 20. And when we watch it, I guess, on the broadcast, it was very visible. That was the breakaway move. How vicious, I guess, did it feel in that moment? Because you don't have all that much time to react, and you see Career go. You decide to cover the move, which is what everyone kind of knew you were going to do. And even part of it was Clayton was hanging on even at that point too. I saw you look back and kind of spot where he was, almost saying come on, let's do this. So what was that moment?
That moment was, that's the one thing, it's kind of a what if moment now. It's the one part of the race where what if I had changed this?
I love it whenever you find what the what if moment was, because you've pointed that out before in Paris and in New York. So this is it.
This is it. So that's where I had gone up the hill and I was on the right side of the road. And Mukhtar Idris had kind of, he'd kind of taken the lead in front of me, so I, got behind him because the headwind had started to increase at that point. And then we see, John Career's on the left side. They're kind of, the line is starting to form. People are going, so we slowly move over because I'm just going to run behind Mukhtar. I don't want to run into the wind. And so if he's moving over, I'm moving over. They're running the tangent, we're not. And I move over, and I'm kind of in the back of that, and I look back, to see who else is in it, and I'm pretty much at the back. Clayton's, 5, maybe 4 meters back. He's he's like the one guy just barely hanging on, and that's when I look up and see I'm at the back of this pack, and John Career has just made a move and gapped people, and they were letting him go. And so that's when I go and I pass everybody else and try and catch him. And I wish I would have been at the front of the pack at that moment. And that's the what if thing. Like, what if I had been at the front of the pack and gone with his move? Do I take second? Do I blow up and take fifth? Like, where do I end up? I mean, it's easy to say that now because, like, let's say that, Simbu and, Kotat, how do you say, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like Cyprian Kotat or whatever his name.
Kotat,
Yeah.
Yeah. So if those guys later caught me and then I'm fourth, I'm always thinking, oh, if I had not gone with this move, I would have taken second. So, like...
Yeah, so, I mean, like, there was risk on both sides.
Right. Like, I mean, looking back, that's like the what-if moment. Like, either I go with him and I blow up, or I go with him and I hold on for second. But I tried to catch him. He was moving, though, and I don't know, it was hard to risk it, knowing I don't think I could catch back up to him, and then knowing if I don't catch back up to him, I'm alone for the next bit, and I was kind of okay with being alone, but it was a hard move. Like I just wasn't able to catch him as quickly as I thought I would, and then after that it was okay. Let's just keep running and see what happens. And then I had the three other guys, Mukhtar, Kotat, and Simbu, who caught up to me. I didn't realize it. I found a video on Instagram that showed I actually had like gapped those three guys like by a decent amount, but when they caught up to me, it was just the three of us, competing against each other for like the rest of the way.
Yeah, what do you think is so important about having been in that front pack instead of on the right side or like towards the back having to make the move? So like in the grand scheme of just like the tactics there, was it just sort of like you would have had a quicker response?
Yeah, and with it being windy, I think I would have been able to stick behind John for a little bit. And, if I could just stick behind him for, 2 miles, it would have been easier to just do whatever I can to, like, just stick on him instead of being like, all of a sudden I'm pushing into the wind with these guys, eventually catching up and sitting behind me, and I have to dictate the pace. And in a way, it would be nice to just kind of turn my mind off, the worries go out the window, the focus is stick with this guy as long as possible. That makes it, it's more exciting to be like, okay, I'm either going to take first or second, and if I'm here, and I don't see myself winning in that situation. But I think in that situation, I don't know if I could even take second, but I like to think I could have. And so, going with that move, I think would have helped me, hold on a little bit more to a little bit faster of a final time. But I think, again, it's the what if moment. But I don't think Simbu and Kotat would have, I don't think they would have pushed the pace to catch up. Because so in those next few miles, I would make moves to kind of drop Mukhtar. And then I would, get annoyed running into the wind. Why am I the one leading in the wind? I'd slow down, I'd get behind them. And they would slow down. And then Mukhtar would catch back up. And so it was kind of this, like, annoying, they were just holding back, getting ready to kick, and willing to do anything they could to just, hold on, while I was like, I want to just keep moving, drop as many of you guys as I can. But those two were just, I don't know how much they had left. They probably had a lot left in the tank because their kick was so good, but I don't know.
It's almost like they were just like, all right, he's going to win, and now it's like we're just in a, 4-man race right now for second and third.
Right. And so, like, that's where that's where my mind goes, is if I had gone behind John, do they keep pushing to try and catch us, or do they, race the rest of their pack? Because if they don't push to catch us, maybe I run even slower than I ran, and maybe I still get second. But, what if?
Big what if.
Yeah.
So of this sequence where John Career goes 440 mile 20, Heartbreak Hill 21, 441, then after that 424. How are you feeling kind of in that chase? And like Career says the hardest part was eventually when you hit 40K, and then there's that little downhill and back uphill.
Yeah.
So similar for you, where it's like that part of the race you're still intact.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty good. It was kind of like this. I would make these moves, and I'd be feeling good, and then the wind would hit, and I'd be like, oh, maybe I don't feel good. When really it was just I needed to either, well, I didn't need to do anything differently, but like I could have, just embraced running into the wind. But it's annoying and it's hard and it's a long straightaway, and so it was just, I don't know. It was really good for how I felt at the end of a marathon, but it was really a tough battle because I mean, there are three guys with me, and I was pretty sure I was gonna beat Mukhtar because he kept getting dropped and then coming back. So I was like, this guy's doing everything he can to hold on. I have more in the tank, so I'm ready for these like next few miles. But the other two, actually, funny thing, I thought one of them was Chibet.
Yeah,
because they were
you did drop him
yeah,
eventually, and then
right.
he drops out much later on. Like he almost could have finished, but dropped out. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought Chibet was either Katut or Simbu, because I was pushing and I was just looking forward. I saw like John was out of my sights pretty quickly. Like he gapped us very quickly, and I was like, I'm competing now for second. And when those two had kind of like, I don't know, they one of the points where I let them lead, I looked at both of them and I was like, wait a sec, like neither of these guys is Chibet. I kind of expected Chibet was going to make a hard move, and that kind of shows a folly I had where I was so focused on two or three really good athletes on what they're going to do that I kind of forgot that there's other really, really good athletes that I don't know their race plan, I don't know their strategies and stuff. So
When we did our whole breakdown of like the field, we didn't talk about those two guys.
yeah,
They
I
flew
didn't think
under the
about
radar
them.
a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had beaten Simbu at the Olympics, and I felt like I had more left there. But it's so easy to be like, well, I had more left there, but he could have been like, well, I had way more left there. I didn't run my best race. So, and Cotet, like, again, it's like, I don't know how good the Berlin field was last year. Like, and he's ran fast, and I don't know, you can't, they put in, 20 really good guys in a field like this. You might know who 10 of them are and feel like those are the 10 you need to worry about. But yeah, some of the other guys is just good.
So then from there, in that hard portion, like, I think you spotted the clock around mile 22, and then that's when sort of like you realize, oh, it's like, okay, like, the podium is right here. Like, that's the battle you're in. But then also you've got a shot at history in a really fast time no matter what.
Right. And that was something that was good to motivate me. I kind of wish it would have motivated me more. But it was something where it was like, okay, like if at first it was what got really motivating. I stopped saying, what if I run 5-minute pace? It was now, what if I run 3-minute kilometers? And I felt good. I felt like we were in a rhythm. No matter if I was leading or the other guys were leading, like they would slow it down, but it would still feel like we're going, about the same, like just barely slower pace. And I was like, oh, like I might hit Ryan Hall's time. So it's like if I get beat by these guys, I run, in the 204s, like I can, I don't know, I can still be happy. So in a way, it kind of took the pressure off a little bit of being so worried about how good are these guys, what are they going to have left, and instead put it on, just get to 1,000 left, and then make your last move. But for now, and these are the mental gymnastics you play to do well. But for now, it was, let's try and run fast. Like, be focused on like a fast time. That way, you're not like frustrated if one of these guys starts, puts in a really fast surge or no, it's not even that. Maybe take that part out. But uh, yeah, it was just like that could still motivate me even if I was to get beat, was that I could run, a really fast time and try and beat Ryan Hall's, American all conditions best.
How good does it feel to, I guess, like be an American in contention in those stages of the race? With I know you're probably like blacking out and like so zoned in on like what's happening in front of you, but I just picture the crowds on Heartbreak Hill, and then when you're passing through Boston College, and for them to see an American is still fighting, like you must have heard your name so much, and like the cheer so loud compared
Oh
to
yeah,
some other races.
it was incredible. Like you hear it, like I mean, even throughout the whole course, you hear your name thousands of times, and that was pretty special. It was loud, it was exciting. I mean, people were excited, and you could feel that they were excited for you, and I was excited because I felt good. It wasn't like I was, am I gonna make it to the finish line in one piece? Am I like? I stopped thinking, what if I died a 5 minute pace? It became, no, I'm attacking this marathon. It was more of an assertive mentality, and hearing the crowds just roar, I mean, and I was fighting for a podium. Like, I feel like the podium has always been on my mind. It was in my mind in New York, and I was somewhat close time-wise, but I really wasn't that close. And it was just like, this is it. Like, I am doing, like, what I set out to do, and I feel great, and just, I don't know, it was a very special moment. But I was pretty zoned in, but I enjoyed it, and I would love to live through it again.
The most questions, which we'll get to some from the listeners in a bit, but it mostly is a lot of people being like, hey, I was standing at mile 18. Did you see my sign? Did you hear this? Or like, so first off, did any signs stick out to you?
No, I was pretty like focused on the athletes ahead of me, or the athletes I was running next to, or just the road ahead. Mainly because of my bad experience 2 years ago.
Okay.
I did see Coach Eystone around 10K. I did see my parents, and I only saw my dad. There was like a whole group of family, but the only one I recognized was my dad at 10K. So I noticed my dad. He actually had his phone out filming, and it was like I threw my bottle, and I looked and saw him as I threw my bottle, and then I like paid more attention, and then I saw Coach, and he tells me, "Hey, don't lead anymore," or just he says, "Don't lead, Mantz." So I internalized that.
Oh, so you caught that even with how loud it was.
Yeah, those were the only times that I really noticed exactly who or what was saying, or who was saying anything or what was being said.
Yeah. I think about just like the cross country team and how you guys had like all the whiteboards out,
Oh
feeding
yeah,
information,
yeah.
and even at the Paris Olympics, no whiteboards at this one.
No, it's hard to get around this course. Like
Yeah.
the fact that Coach Eystone and Kylie and a bunch of people were able to see us twice was, pretty incredible. Not a lot of people are able to be at multiple places on the marathon at Boston.
Yeah. No, that is very impressive. So then, all right, let's get to, kind of the battle for the podium spots. Like, eventually Mukhtar just gets dropped, and it is like 3 men for 2 spots on the podium. And it just like was never relenting. Who's making the moves in that stretch, and how were you feeling?
I was feeling good, but I know I said I was trying to work on not worrying, but I was totally worrying about it because it was like, I would go and be like, I can take second, and then it was like I might not even be able to take third, so that was kind of a little rough. I was the only one making moves, and
That's what it felt like. Yeah.
yeah, and I would make these moves, and then we'd be going into the wind. I'd be like, no wait, I'll sit back and wait, and I don't know how many times I did that, but enough. Like anytime we hit a downhill, I would go to the front and push, hoping it would break one of them. We went under the underpass at 1,000 to go, and I was like feeling really grateful because like the last time I did that, I couldn't see anything. I had to slow down and just barely get to the finish line. So I was like feeling really grateful where I was, but then I was like, no, I want to beat these guys. I want to take second because like second's right there. Like my goal was podium, but like second is like that's higher up on the podium, and it's within reach. I made a really hard move when you take the right on
Hereford?
right? Hereford, and I was visualizing training. I was like in training. I was visualizing this moment, and I think it was Meb said, "Hey, like in training you visualize these moments. Now in racing you can visualize your training." And so I was visualizing this moment a lot in training. And so I was visualizing like my training and how many times I just pushed up hills. Well, like on easy runs, I just put a little bit extra on some uphills, and I was like, this is it. Like this is the moment I break away, and I can just see in my peripheral vision these two guys like right here, and I'm like, what is going on? Like why aren't one of these guys dropping? Like I am moving hard. We take the left turn. And like right before the left turn, that like little thought of discouragement gets to me, and I slow down just a little bit on the turn. And like at this point, my legs are pretty trashed. But like, that little bit of discouragement and trashed legs just kind of like, it's like, it just slowed me down a little bit on that turn. So they both swing wide, and they pass me on the turn, and then I catch back up and running 3 abreast for that whole last stretch until. Right after it said 26 miles, they start to pull away. But once we hit 26 miles, or like as we're going down that stretch, I'm like, all right, I'll move with 400 to go. Like that's when I'll go. And I felt like I made my move, and they weren't dropping, and then they made their moves to out sprint each other. And it just felt like I was running through sand. It was like slow motion, like everything I could, and I wasn't speeding up at all. Like it just felt like my pace was about the same, and then with about 100 meters left, it was like, well, they're not coming back. So I kind of coasted a little bit, but that was, I don't know, tough moment to see second place and third place disappear like so quickly.
Yeah, you crossed the finish line, and you've described it as bittersweet. Has just kind of with the last 2 days since the race, has the stung gone down a little bit?
Yeah, because I think it was bittersweet because my goal, like my A goal was getting on the podium. Like the ultimate goal is I want to win, but I feel like I could have I felt like I could get on the podium. But the more I look at the race, there's nothing there's the what if about going with John, but it wasn't like I let up at any moment. Like I was really pushing, and those 3 guys that beat me were just really, really dang good on the day, and I couldn't do anything else. Like I've gone through it, and I'm like, if I don't know. Sometimes I feel like in races, if I could have dug just a little bit more, and this time it was like I couldn't. Like I couldn't dig a little bit more. Like maybe if I dug a little bit more, the last 400 I ran 2:05:07. Like it maybe I dropped a second in that last 400, but it's not significant to change my position. So yeah, the bitterness is kind of gone with it. Like those guys were really good, and then I think about I was competing up front. Like that was a cool moment, and 22 seconds or 22 point something seconds off a win, and 4 point something seconds off second place. That's a cool thing to look back on, and be like, before I was 80 seconds off a win in New York, and I was 71 seconds off a bronze medal at the Olympics, and so being closer, not every race, it's not about time per se, but almost feeling like, I can make like a 22-second jump feels reasonable. That makes it a really sweet moment.
The one cool part about having done this with you now multiple times is when I hear from the listeners that they're like, man, it's so cool. And at the same time, they're like, I don't understand why like Connor's upset with this performance when like that would be a dream race for most athletes.
Right.
But it's an element that is also fed into your success because you are so critical and you're chasing not just being top American or finishing in the top 10, but like the podium and potentially winning, that it keeps you motivated and you're able to, try and correct things and learn in the process so that the next one gets better. And so
Yeah.
what I'm very curious about is how people will listen to this one, because it does seem like this is the most, I know it probably stung to be that close, but feels like the most satisfied you are with like how much you emptied the tank and really got the most out of yourself on that day compared to any race you've run in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like, I executed the plan, very well. I felt like I did everything that was needed, in training to get to this point. And I felt like I showed my training well, with how I raced. And so it was kind of like, well, like, in a way it was, I don't know, how do I say this in a simple term, but there was nothing more I could have done. Like, and that was nice to end this race and be like, okay, yes, I still want to win. I still want to be podium. Like, every race I run after this, I want to be up there and fighting for a win, and then, if not a win, a podium finish. But this one was very, satisfying. Yeah, I mean, I know we've already said that word a couple times, but I hit it. Like, I hit everything I needed to do, and I had a good performance. While I feel like in New York, I was so far off my fitness, and in the Olympics, I was close, but I just felt like I executed a little poorly in some times. And then a lot of other races, it's just like I just thought I was ready to make a jump, and I wasn't, and now I finally hit that point where it's like, oh, I made that time jump.
Let's clarify two things about the finish
Yeah.
that people might be confused about when they, have watched it, or like they are trying to, process what happened at the very end of the race. So John Career goes down the runner's left side of the finish line. That's kind of like where they have it reserved with like family waiting. When it's a clear winner, like, all right, that's where that person's going to go. Then everyone else will filter over to the right side. That didn't affect you like a whole lot because you knew that was going to be the case, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then the other thing to kind of that people would point it out was you crossed the finish line, and I think like you like pointed or something like that, and like, but that wasn't like anything intentional about anyone ahead of you, right?
No, I don't even remember pointing. I was just tired.
Yeah, no, I figured that was just like heat of the moment, just dead tired, like whatever, yeah.
Maybe I might have been pointing. Maybe I pointed at the ground. I haven't watched my finish yet. I thought it was funny. This is something that, if anybody wants a good laugh, they should go back and watch. But Kotat and Simbu sprinted probably 30 meters beyond the finish line.
Oh, really?
So, like, the official finish line, like, they kept going. I think they thought there was another... I thought they thought it was, like, something else. That was the finish line. So they were, like, moving hard. And I, like, crossed the finish line and...
I think that's what it was, because I think like you pointed us at like, where are they going?
Yeah, like, do I still need to keep moving? I mean, that did cross my mind, but I was like, no, there's no way. Like, they said it's, in the technical meeting, they said it's the line right after the, big blue line. It's the white line right after the giant blue finish. So.
All right, let's get into some listener questions. First off, someone just asked, how? I think we just reviewed that whole entire thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. This is a fun one. Chris L250 asks, how would the Boston course be if you had to run in the opposite way? Would you prefer that race?
Oh, I don't think so. That would be so hard. It's already a hard enough course, but, like, could you imagine, like, being at the bottom of the hill at mile, like, what would that be, 9?
Yeah.
10? And then you have to go uphill the rest of the way with, like...
Oh, then the finish?
Oh, that finish would, you'd crawl, you'd be running, people would be running, I don't know what they'd be running, but it would have been like a 2:12 day or 2:10 day for a lot of guys, so.
No Dro 21, and this is a common question to ask. Flat, paced course, what do you think you could have run on that day with this fitness?
I mean, I obviously I think I could run faster. But it's a hard question to know, so we'll just say 2:04 something.
Yeah. I mean, then the next logical question is this fall, right? Like, if you choose to hypothetically run the Chicago Marathon, and that's, a flat, fast race that are experienced with, like, there's no question that the American record is in jeopardy there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was we've me and Coach Eystone have talked about this a few times, and Clayton and I have talked about it probably hundreds of times. Um, but it's like, what do we need to do to get to the point where I'm competing for the American record? And for Clayton and I, it's both of us want it, and it's kind of a fun thing to chat about. But it's marathon pace needs to be 4:45, and well, it doesn't need to be to break the American record, but marathon pace, whenever we think marathon pace, my mind goes to 4:45 now, which I felt a little bit like an imposter saying that for a while, because it was like, oh yeah, but your best is 4:52 pace on the Chicago Marathon course, like, that's 7 seconds a mile. That's I don't know, that's like a 4:47 miler trying to break 4:40 or whatnot. 7 seconds is a ton per mile, and so I'm happy to back that one up. But yeah, it's just that's in my mind. 4:45 pace. So whatever that ends up being in a full marathon, I know it's 2:04:40 something. That would be what I would try and go for if I ran a marathon like a Chicago or Berlin or Valencia, something like that.
Here's where it gets now a little bit tricky with, a hypothetical Chicago Marathon showdown, where it's like, that's where yesterday in my conversation, John Career is like, I want to go after potentially like the world record. World record is 2 hours flat and 35 seconds. And it's like, you throw that guy into the field, and if there is like an American record attempt with you, say a Clayton or a Matt Rickman or whoever really is having these breakouts wants to take a stab at it, like, kind of less fun when that seems like there's two separate races going. But then, like,
Absolutely.
you fall into the limbo where it's like, I want to compete for the win, but if the win is going to be too flat, like, that's a whole nother level.
Right. And I mean, I'd have to have an amazing next 6 months to get to that point where I'm confident enough to go out with a win like that, or with somebody who's going to go out in 60 minutes or 61 minutes if he's trying to negative split it, I guess. I don't even know, but it'd be, yeah, if he's going out in like 61:30, then I'd be like, well, then I'm not going for the American record. I'm just going to go for the win.
Yeah.
And compete. But yeah, that world record pace, it's I remember hearing once, like, a goal needs to, you don't want a goal that's going to make you nervous. You want a goal that's going to make you excited. And thinking about a race where I try to keep up for a world record pace would be slightly exciting, but I think there's too many nerves to go with that.
A question that just popped into my head, because now it is sort of like up for debate. We'll see what happens in London with, like, someone like Jacob Kiplimo making his debut, and Sebastian Sawe also running there, and they have like all these heavy hitters out there. But with you having experienced Tamarat Tola, Evans Chibet, now John Career, who do you think is the best marathoner in the world right now?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, obviously, like, John Career put us away pretty hard in 2 miles. Like, he didn't have anyone breathing down his neck for 6 miles that were, maybe not, yeah, for the last 6 miles of the race. Tola's move at the Olympics, like, that was incredible. I don't know, like, how well Tola won the Olympics. I think it's hard to say that, there's somebody better than that, but again, John Career's last 2 races have been also very incredible, so I don't think you could pinpoint who's the best right now.
Sam_Weber 1559 asks, when a guy makes the move like Career did, is it a noticeable jolt, or is it more like a Jakob squeeze?
I think Career's was a noticeable jolt. Most of the time it's like a Jakob squeeze, but Career's was, I mean, maybe it's because I missed it, like, initially. Like, maybe he was squeezing it up the hill, and then, I move over and don't think much of it. Like, he's just the next guy to lead. But I mean, with him taking, me noticing he was in the lead. Within 20 seconds, he'd broken away. So it was a jolt for sure.
I didn't notice this thing. Anthony M. Monaco asked, did he see the motorcycle back out onto the road in the final 20 seconds of the race?
No.
Was there? I don't know. I don't know if something happened with the motorcycle. I didn't see that at all. Allie 4 asked, did you get sunburned? Ouch, I'm going to look like a lobster all week. How's your sunburn?
I don't think I got burnt. Maybe just very lightly. Now that you say that, I'm like feeling my head like maybe it's a little bit, but.
Someone else asked, CM McGroovy asked, is he going to go after a sub 4 mile now? So, I mean, this comes on the same day that Faith Kipyegon announced that she will be making a sub 4 minute mile attempt. I don't know, Connor. I think you need to find a mile race between now and what is it, June 29th that she's going to attempt it, so that you don't get beat to it.
I know. I need to find something. It's just it's hard to find a good a mile race, and there's one next week, but I'm not going to be ready for that. I'm going to run if I go run that, I'm going to run 4:12.
I saw you made your plea to Grand Slam track public again. Not
third time's the charm.
Third time's the charm. You're out for Miami. Available for Philly or LA.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. Okay. Jack Kern _ asks, how fast could you run a marathon in skinny jeans? Now, I did see this. You were at the airport with, I think it's, what's his name? Justin Truitt or something like that?
Yeah. Justin,
Truitt Haynes, right?
Just Truitt Haynes.
Yeah.
I ran into one of the guys that owns, he owns 21 Run. He runs with us.
Yeah, Jordan Maddox. He's my buddy, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know him. So Jordan was like, hey, this guy... So Jordan, I don't know if you knew this, Jordan broke the world record for running a marathon in banana suit.
2:31 was it, I think?
Yeah, I think that 2:31 or 2:33. Either way,
okay.
It was pretty fast. And then he's like, here, this guy just broke the world record in, running in jeans. And I was like, that's nuts. I don't know how fast I could run in jeans, but I don't think I want to even try and find it out.
Nat _ Livingston asks, what's your inner monologue saying when you're racing, working out, chilling, waking up, or stuff that isn't said out loud? Do you have a phrase you go to?
When I'm racing and it gets really hard, I just tell myself, or working out, I say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Another thing is I just start counting. So I'll do, especially at the end of a workout, if it's I have 1:40 left, it's 100 seconds for the last mile of a hard tempo or a repeat session. I'll count, I'll go 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3. So count my steps. They'll count, as every step is about a third of a second. So go 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, and so on until I get to 20, and then I'm okay, let's repeat 20 because now I only have 80 seconds. And those mind games you have to play with yourself. Definitely.
All right, so kind of one of the final questions I have for you, Connor, is, I mean, we didn't talk, we focused on you for the most part, but behind you, I mean, Clayton and Ryan Ford, running 2:08 for Ryan Ford, and Clayton getting a personal best with, a 2:07. Big day for the Americans. And what does that say, I guess, about the state of American distance running right now?
Oh, it's in a great state. I was gonna say Rory Linkletter, also college teammate, but him running 2:07 as well. I think it's in a great spot. I mean, I think we hadn't performed. Just because Americans aren't running, insanely fast times doesn't mean we're not good. I think it's, we're competing at these races. Top 8 on a day like yesterday might have been, or 10th was 2:08 flat. How comparable is that to sometimes, guys like CJ have been? I think CJ was 7th last year. Or maybe you compare a Scott Fauble who's been 7th before, and maybe Fauble on a similar day with a similar pair of shoes as, me or Clayton or Ryan Ford are having. Maybe Faubourg runs, a faster time. We're all about just competing. Like that's the goal. So I think it means we're in a great place. I think what's more impressive about the way like each of us ran it is, me, and I'm gonna throw Rory in there too, because he's a college teammate and a really good friend. But me, Clayton, and Rory is the way we ran it is we were competing with that pack for a long time, and then those two guys, even though Clayton and Rory struggled, their final miles they still beat the majority of the people in the pack. And then what was cool about Ryan Ford is he almost even split his race for his half marathons. So it's just, I don't know, there's more to it than just the time, but it's fun to see, American distance running and Canadian distance running. We'll say North American distance running going very well.
Is there, it took you a while to kind of mentally unlock the thought of, I am a contender to win, a world marathon major.
Yeah.
And maybe those guys are just off of, kind of entering that realm mentally. But it feels like you're going to have company from, the North Americans very soon of thinking, all right, we can compete against the East Africans for the win at these stages.
Right. You got to get, we definitely got to get more people to BYU, because apparently Coach Eiston's the best guy at preparing North American distance runners for their post-collegiate
You're not just saying that because you're in his office right now,
I'm not
right?
just saying that because he's right here and I'm in his office, no. But, yeah, I think it's going to, we've seen it on the track. I think a lot of, yeah. All right, real quick. If you score Kenya versus BYU at the Boston Marathon, you score 3 deep, we lose 13-17.
Really?
And if my kick was better and I made up those 5 seconds, or I was 5 seconds faster, I think we lose 14-15. And so, just saying, we got to get more people to BYU.
BYU versus the world.
BYU versus the world, and we have an amazing recruiting class coming in. So, you're going to see, as long as Ed's coaching, you're going to see some great Americans coming through and doing things as in the marathon.
All right, one more thing, because it just came to mind, and it's probably a thing that people will bring up. They're going to be curious, what was on your feet for this thing? I know you've been a fan of the Alphafly 1 in the past, then reverted to the Alphafly 3, and then apparently this is an Alphafly but a development version of it. I'm sure you can't say everything about it.
I
right?
Can't say much about it, but it's very similar to the Alphafly 3. It's I think you can all look it up on the World Athletics website, what it looks like and all this stuff. But it's a great shoe. I wore it for my last 2 halves, and yeah, I'm happy that Nike's, they're always innovating. So it's they are really good at, always being on what's the next thing before anybody comes out with anything. So grateful that they do that. The Nike shoe team's awesome. So really
now we just got to get you back into spikes very soon, it seems like.
That would be, get me back in spikes. Maybe I need the Faith Kipyegon spikes that are about to come out. That's Heartbreak 4.
Exactly. All right, Connor. Well, thanks for letting me come on your podcast, and congratulations on a big day in Boston. Always a pleasure, and we've added yet another chapter to essentially what could be an audiobook by the end of your marathoning career, and I'm looking forward to that.
Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.